If you're looking to level up your motion design skills, this tutorial will change everything. Today I'm going to show you how to create a 3D timeline animation using Adobe After Effects. This effect is super dynamic. You can use it for animations, timelines, and of course, transitions. I recently used this in an explainer video that I'll link below. The best part is this tutorial is for all skill levels and no plugins are required. You can check out the project file in the description below or follow along with your own assets. Now let's get started. So we're in After Effects here, and the first thing we're going to do is create our working composition. So I'm going to label this working comp. We're going to make this 4K resolution, and we are going to leave the frame rate and the duration all the same. All right, and then I'm just going to drag this up to our working folder. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is create our design, because by doing that, that is going to create the framework for our animation, which is super important and makes our lives a whole lot easier. So I have some fun AI generated images. I created a mid-journey, and I'm not claiming anything that we're making today to be factually accurate for the record, but I wanted to just have some fun with this and create some really cool different images. And what we're going to do is create some placeholders and pre-comp those, because that will just allow us a more optimal workflow if we ever want to change anything or save this out as a template. By creating our timeline like this, it's going to make our lives a whole lot easier. If that doesn't make sense, stick with me. I'll show you what I'm talking about. First thing I'm gonna do is go back to our working folder here and create a new composition. And I'm just gonna call this placeholder 1. And I'm actually gonna make this 1920 by 1080, and we'll leave it at that. So I labeled these for you guys, and we're gonna start with our king right here. And we're just gonna scale him up so he fits throughout the entire frame right here. And then what I'm gonna do is duplicate this, and then I'm gonna go up to the 1700s, and this is gonna be really easy. I'm just gonna hold down Alt, and then drag and click, and it'll replace that right away. Same thing, and we're just gonna go in order here. Okay, next, now we have all of our placeholders. So now what I wanna do is actually bring them into our working comp. So I'll just bring them all in here. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna do is pull up my proportional grid. That'll allow me to kind of balance things out. And I currently have mine set up to the rule of thirds. If your grid does not look like this, I'll quickly show you how to access this. Go to Edit, Preferences, Grids and Guides, and you want to make sure that your proportional grid is set up to 3 and 3, and you could change the color to whatever you want. All right, so I'm just going to shrink these down a little bit. I'm actually going to make them all 3D, and I'm just going to spread them out here. Bring them down a little bit more. I'm going to leave comp 3 right in the center, but I'll move comps 4 and 5 over to the right. And since we're working in 3D space, currently right now everything is on the same plane, meaning when I go to 2 view here, this is the top view of all of our assets, and they're all on the same line as you can see right here. So what I want to do is actually change the distance of these assets from one another, so there's just a little bit of separation as we're moving across. As you saw in the example, there was some parallaxing going on, and I want to replicate that here. So I'm going to keep comps 1 and 5 at 0 on the z-axis right here. When I click P, you have the z-axis right here. I'm going to go to placeholder 2. I'm going to push that back to something like 1000. Placeholder 3, I'll push this back to 500. And then placeholder 4, I'm going to push this back to something like, let's say, I don't know, 2000. All right, and as you can see now, they're all in different spots. Placeholder 4 is up there. I just wanted to show you that as an example of kind of what I'm talking about here. And of course, when you're going to push something further back, it's going to shrink, right? But the beauty of After Effects is that you can just scale that bad boy back up, and it is up to proportion. And so the thing about this is we actually want things to look imperfect. So I'm going to be spending just a little bit of time tinkering with the scale and position of these placeholders, just so we can get ourselves in a good spot. All right, I like the way this looks. So the next thing we're gonna do is take our working comp, and we're gonna pre-compose this and label this render comp. And so with that, what I'm gonna do is go to Layer, New, Camera, and we'll leave this at 35 millimeter. And then it's gonna give us this warning, and that's because we need to make this layer 3D. And the next thing I wanna do is create a couple null objects. So this first one, I'm gonna call this Camera Zoom. I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to call this next one Camera Pan. What I need to do is make these null layers 3D. I'm going to parent the camera layer to the camera zoom, and I'm going to parent the camera zoom to the camera pan. All right, and what I'm doing is basically creating controllers. Every pan movement that I'm going to be doing is going to be with this null object, and every camera zoom movement I'm going to be doing is going to be with this null object. Doing it this way allows us to not have so many keyframes in just one layer, and it actually gives us a lot more autonomy and freedom. And then next thing we're going to do here is click this rasterize button right here for our working comp. It's very important that we do that. The next thing we're going to do is actually start animating. What we're going to do is go to our camera zoom, and I'm going to basically zoom in here. I'm going to start over here with our first placeholder. And I want to get really tight. I want this placeholder one to fill the entire frame. All right, so what I'm going to do is kind of identify just a point in time when I want to start this animation, and I want to start it right around the 12 frame mark. So I'm going to I'm going to click my stopwatch here and set a keyframe, and then what I want is I want the zoom out to kind of be a little bit gradual. So I'm going to go to about 1.5 seconds from this keyframe, so at 2 seconds, and I'm going to zoom out just like this. And we're going to get to easing and all that in a little bit. I just kind of want to see our placement here and see how that looks. Maybe zoom out just a little bit more. Nice. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is our pan camera movement. So I'm going to go just right here for now, click our stopwatch. I'm going to go down about 4 seconds or so. I'm just going to slide across here. We're going to keep going. All right. And then we're going to basically do the same thing we did with the zoom keyframe. So I'm going to set another keyframe here, and then I'm going to go 1.5 seconds. And then I'm just going to zoom in. So here's what we have so far. We have the zoom out, then we have the pan across, and you see that parallaxing that we have because we push things back in 3D space. And then same thing towards the end here, zooms back in. And there's a couple things I'd probably do differently. Like maybe like with this placeholder 4, you could barely see that. So I might even just bump that over a couple notches so that way we could see it a little bit better. Just little micro adjustments like that, but we'll make those in a little bit. But really what I need to do is fix up this animation, because while we have the idea down, it looks kind of ugly, but thankfully it's a really easy fix. And what we're going to do that is with some easing and offsetting keyframes. If that sounds like a lot, just stick with me. I got you. What I'm going to do is go up to our position here. I'm going to highlight both keyframes, and I'm going to click F9 to easy ease. Then I'm going to make sure both keyframes are highlighted. I'm going to jump over to our graph editor, and then I'm going to highlight our handles here, and I'm just going to drag this in, not all the way. I usually do it all the way. I'm just going to drag it in most of the way, and then I'm going to drag this one just a little bit over too. This is going to create just a little bit of a nice smooth animation, just like that. Now we have to repeat this process a couple of times, and there's a couple ways you can do that. One is you could follow the same processes and copy the same values. What I'm going to do is take a shortcut, and that is with this flow plugin, and I'll show you how it works. I'm going to highlight both keyframes here. I'm going to click read values. It's going to give me these values, and then all I'm going to do is click right here, and I'm going to click apply. Really easy stuff. So just to save time, I recommend getting this plugin for yourself. Here's how things look now. We have things pull out, we have things go across, and then when we have things zoom in. So like while this looks better, it still looks kind of stiff. Like we have one complete movement, and we have the other complete movement, and it just goes by a little too slow. So the way to fix that is really simple, and all we're going to do is actually offset some keyframes here. So I know that this zoom animation ends at 2 seconds. I'm just going to go into, like, let's say 1.5 seconds. I'll take our position keyframes here, and I'm just going to drag this up here. So now when we zoom out, it goes a little bit smoother. And if we want, we could even bump this up a little bit further, like this. That's looking good. And then same thing here. See how, we kind of have a little bit of a triangle going on with these keyframes? I'm just going to do the same thing here with these two keyframes. I'm just going to bring them down like this. And let's see how this looks. Nice. It's looking better. So this is the transition part of the tutorial where we go from one scene to the other in a seamless manner, which is really cool. But there's still a lot more to do. Like, for example, a background. Right now, we don't have one. So let me show you how we're going to make one today. I'm going to go back to our working comp here, and I'm actually going to take one of our assets that we're already using in here. We have our document. All I'm going to do is create a new composition, and I'm going to call this doc background. And then I'm going to bring our document into here, and then I'll bring this actual composition up to our working folder. I'm just going to scale this up, and I want to scale it up so much that I don't see this little white edge. I don't like that. So let's move it over like that. Cool. And so now when I go back to our working comp here, I'll bring in our doc composition. I will make it 3D. I'll push it back in Z space by 6,000 pixels. And you'll see it's much smaller compared to everything else. So I need to scale it up a good bit. Something like that's pretty good. So right now our background does not blend in very well. That's because there's not any contrast between the foreground and the background. We're gonna fix that here. So what we're gonna do is jump into our background folder, and we're gonna add some fun effects. The first thing I'm gonna do is add a tint effect that is going to make everything black and white. Then I'm going to add a invert effect that is simply going to invert the colors. What was white is black, what was black is now a white. The next thing we're going to do is add an extract effect. And what this effect is going to allow us to do is either take out the black values or the white values of a particular image or footage or what have you. And I want to take out the black values. So I'm just going to bring this across here, and you see how things are, all of the dark values are going away. And I could even smooth it out just a little bit with this bottom handle and just bring this in a little bit more. And the last thing we're gonna do is add a deep glow effect. And it's going to just make things pop a little bit. And we're going to change the radius to 300 and the exposure to 0.15. All right, so right away, this is what we have. And when we go back to our working comp, we also have a lot better contrast. But because we use the extract effect, a lot of things are still transparent. You really can't see much. So what I'm going to do is actually label this doc top, and then I'm going to duplicate it and label the second one bottom, bring this below. And with our bottom layer, all I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of our extract effect and our deep glow effect. And then I'm going to add a hue saturation effect. And then I'm going to change the master lightness to -70. So when I hide our top layer here, now we have this really subtle background asset. And that's really what you want out of a background asset. You want it to be very subtle. And with that, this is what we have. But how do I find like the happy medium between like showing, you know, a little bit of flare, a little bit of glow versus keeping things simple? And I'm going to show you how we do that with a very easy expression. So when I turn on our top layer right here, I'm going to click T for opacity. I'm going to hold on the Alt button, click on our stopwatch here. I'm going to put in this expression. It's posterized time 6 followed by wiggle 10, 30. And what this is going to do is give us a bit of a flicker. It honestly just looks like an old light bulb that needs to be changed. And this little flicker is a fun little effect I like to do. Now we have this fun little flicker and flare. And when I go out here to our animation, you see we still have these black bars. And that is because our working comp actually needs to be just a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go back to our working comp here. I'm just going to go to composition settings, and I just need to expand the width. So I'll just change it to something like, let's say 5,000. And then what I need to do is just scale things up. All right, so I love the way this animation looks so far, but there is still more flair to be added. So with that being said, the next thing we're going to do is add some fun animated borders. So in order to do that, I'm going to jump into Placeholder 1 here, and I'm going to go up to our shape layer tool. And I want to make sure my fill is deselected and that my stroke is showing. And with the size 80, that totally works for me. So I'm just going to double click here, and right away we get a border. I'm going to type in stroke, and all I'm going to do is click on our stopwatch here and go up to a full second, and then leave a keyframe right there. I'm going to go back to the first keyframe, and I'm going to change the value here to 0. Then I'm going to highlight both of our keyframes here. And remember what we did before with flow, I just copied some presets and then I just applied them. If you forgot what they were, I'll show you real quick. I'm just going to click F90 Easy Ease. I'll go to our graph editor here, and I'm just going to drag this up, and then I'm just going to drag this over just a little bit, and we'll copy these new ones. Slightly different, but pretty similar enough. And then right away, things animate in just like that. So the reason why this is going to look cool is because I'm kind of timing this in relation to our camera animation. So just to connect all that for you, look, the border's going to come in and then things are going to pop out, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's looking good. And we're not going to animate the borders for these other placeholders other than placeholder 5. So all I'm going to do here is go back to placeholder 1. I'll change the name of this to border. I'm still going to copy and paste it in here, but I'm going to click U, and I'm just going to drag this down. So it's already animated in. Copy it. Do the same for 3 and 4. With placeholder 1, I'm going to copy this border and go over to placeholder 5. And then, rather than having things animate in, I'm going to actually have things animate out. So I'm going to click U, and I'm going to highlight both of our keyframes, right click, keyframe assistant, time reverse keyframes. And then all I'm going to do is highlight both keyframes, and I'm going to apply flow. So now things animate out. But I don't want things starting right here because we're not going to see the border by the time we get there. I kind of want to time things up with this zoom animation right here. So I'm going to go back to placeholder 5, and I see, okay, cool. The keyframe needs to start like right around here. And I want the animation to start like right here. So it's offset just the slightest bit. So it's going to zoom in. Actually, we'll go all the way right here. So I'm actually going to go to placeholder 5. I'm going to go to when the border animates out, and we're going to punch in just the slightest bit with this camera animation. So we're just going to go in here like this. And I want to make sure things are nice and centered up. Boom. Make sure everything looks good. So let's see how this looks so far. With the border coming in, zoom out, pan across, zoom in, border goes away, and we zoom in too. So it's just adding little extra touches like this that really bring your animation to the next level. All right, here's what we have so far. I love the way this looks, but as you guys saw in the example, we had these fun, kind of flashy transition animation looking things going on. And the way we did that was by using ink bleed. So that is what we're gonna do next. So what we're gonna do is start with placeholder 1. I'm going to add a tritone effect here. And what really the goal of this is gonna be is to kind of create a contrast between what we have versus what we're showing. So I'm going to add a curves effect. Let's brighten this up a little bit. Looks good. Now what I want to do is duplicate our king. I'll just hide this one, and I'm going to call this king black and white. And then what I'm going to do is remove the tritone, and I'm going to add a black and white effect just like that. All right, so now what we're going to do to transition from this tritone image to this black and white image is using a transition I built in my LumaMap pack. So I will link that in the description below. I have 40 different files, 20 4K transitions, 20 HD. And if I just click on like a random one here, like Luma 9, this one's like a paper look. Luma 6, this one is more of like a kind of 8-bit video game look. I have some that are like traditional ink bleeds, like Luma 1. There's tons of different looks that you can get from this, which is why I love it so much. But we're actually gonna be using Luma 20 today, which is this fun look here. You see it just kind of goes down almost like a sword. It just like it kind of stabs through the middle and then just bleeds on and stops. And what I'm gonna do is bring this in here, and then I'm going to shrink it down because it is a 4K size asset, so we have a lot of flexibility. So all I'm gonna do is mat the king black and white layer to the Luma mat, and I wanna make sure we change this from alpha matte to Luma, and then we wanna invert it. We wanna show the black from this actual transition layer here. All right, so after this transition's in here, what we need to make sure we do is we extend the length of this layer, but the layer is only 4 seconds long, so it drops off. In order to fix that, we're gonna right click, go to time, freeze on last frame, so everything stays. And here's what we have. Now this looks okay, but it could look a lot better. And in fact, in the example, it did look a lot cleaner. So we're gonna add just a little bit more flash to this. As you saw, there was a lot more white. And so in order to do that, we have a simple little trick we're gonna do to make that happen. I'm going to highlight both these layers here. I'm gonna duplicate them. I'm gonna bring them down below. And I'm going to bring our top layers here about 4 frames in. Rather than have the same image and animate on twice, I'm gonna add a fill effect. Right? And as this animates on, you're gonna see it's gonna start to look a little bit red, and then the image is gonna animate on, which is really cool looking, but we don't want red for this. It's just the default color for this effect. We're gonna actually make this white. So now we have like this cool, like aged photo looking thing. And if we want, we could even make it like an off-white, it's really up to you. I like keeping it at white, but you can have all the flexibility you want here. And now it comes on and it looks so nice like that. And then just to differentiate this just a little bit more, what I'm gonna do is go to layer, new, null. I'll bring this down here. I'm actually gonna parent all of these layers to this null object, and I'm just gonna scale it just a little bit. And then I'm going to bring it down. And then with our king layer here, I'm just gonna brighten this up just a little bit more. Maybe add just a little bit more contrast back. So with all that being said, let's take a look at what we got so far. Oh, this is looking so good. And the other cool thing I could do with this is, because this is a 4K size asset with these lumen mats here, I can increase the size of them. I could even move them around a little bit more too if I want, just to have a little bit more visibility. And I kind of like how the original is still showing. It just adds a little bit more visual interest in my opinion. Oh, this is looking so good so far. All right, cool. I want to apply the same Luma transition to these other placeholders that we have here. But I want to make sure that this transition is applied when we start seeing these other assets, right? So I don't want to apply the transition right at the start for placeholder 2, because we don't see placeholder 2 here yet. So I need to go down our render timeline a little bit. Okay, I see it like right around here. And maybe I want to see it hit like right there. Like that would be kind of perfect, right? So all I'm going to do is I'll go back to placeholder 1. I'm going to take Luma 20, and we're going to repeat the same process. I'm going to add a tritone effect. I'm going to duplicate our night. I'm going to add black and white. I'm going to add curves. I'm going to brighten him up. I'm going to click paste to have our Luma effect. And then I'm going to, okay, when do I want him? When do I want to start seeing things? Like right around here. Okay, cool. So I need to bring this down a bit. And what I want to do is make sure that this night black and white is Luma matted to the actual transition layer here. And then I'm going to change this from alpha matte to Luma matte, and then I'm going to invert it. So now it comes in like this. And then all I need to do is, I'll even color code these just to make it a little bit easier. I'll duplicate it, bring the other color coded ones down. I'll change those colors. Then I'm going to add a fill. I'm going to make it white. And then I need to bump this up like, let's say 4 keyframes. And then I need to trim these layers in so they're going to come up when they're supposed to. And then now they animate on in a really fun way. It's really cool. And you know, if we wanted to do something different, we could even do something where we take our Luma layers, go to transform, flip vertical. So now they come up from the bottom. It's another cool look. You could even do it diagonally or through the side. I'm just showing you all your options that you could do with something like this, but this is what we have for this guy. And when we go back to our render comp here, let's see how this looks. All right, so he's coming on like right here. He's coming on a little bit too late for me. We're not seeing that animation until he's almost out of the entire frame. So all I'm going to do is go to placeholder 2. I'm going to bring things up just a good bit, like this. Now let's take a look. Nice, that looks good. So as you see, this one effect here is really easy to copy and paste and apply to other placeholders here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll keep things on so you can follow along. Real quick, I just want to show you guys something cool that I just thought of with this, is that I turned Luma 20 sideways, right? And I have it kind of running through this paper, and it looks really cool with the camera animation. What I decided to do is actually continue that type of look with the placeholder 4 here. And while they're completely different placeholders, completely different layers, completely different times, I made it look like it's all part of one. And it's just, you know, you could have so much fun and customization with effects like this. So I just wanted to point that out. But one more to go, and we'll be ready for the next part. So there's one last thing I'm going to do with this that'll just make it look a little bit more unique, is I'm actually going to change the fill here. Instead of white like I've done for all the others, I'm going to change it to this, like this alien green. So So now it comes in like this and it scales a little bit. Just looks a little different. Man, I am thrilled with the way this is looking, but there are still a couple more things we're gonna do to elevate this. So stick around and I'll show you what we're doing. So we're gonna go to the working comp here. And right now everything looks a little too perfect to me, right? Everything's straight, everything's on the same line. Everything's really kind of like even. If we want to make it look a little bit more authentic, it needs to look a little bit more imperfect. So what we're going to do is actually add some subtle rotation. So I'm going to start with placeholder 2 here, and we're just going to give this, we'll solo this right here. I'm going to click R for rotation. I'll keyframe everything. I'll go down to like 7 seconds or so, and then I'm just going to turn things in a little bit, turn things up. Now we have things just moving just subtly. A little too subtle though. So we're going to reverse these keyframes. Just like this. It's just a little subtlety. So when we come out here, it's not all like perfect, right? We want things to be off a little bit. And another thing we could do to better differentiate this, we can actually scale this up a little bit. And we could even drop the position if we want, just to see how that looks. So now it's like you're looking even more imperfect. That's kind of what we want to do with like a fun collage timeline animation thing. So now what we're going to do is go to the next one, which is placeholder 3. And we're going to just give this a slight little, we'll start this like right here. And then we'll bring it down. We'll extend it out like that. So cool. And we'll just see how this looks. So this is going out. So that's rotated and moving. All right, now for comp 4, what we're gonna do is do the same thing. So I'll go here. And actually we're gonna start making some adjustments. Nice, that looks so cool. Now, I kind of want to see like the edge of this comp back here when this animation goes. So I'm actually going to scale this back up and I'll bump it over a little bit. Let's take a look now. Nice. Now that we have like those middle comps taken care of, we can still add some subtle rotation to our first and last comp. We just need to do it in a smart way. So I know our zoom starts right here at 12 frames. So I'm going to go to our working comp here. I'm going to click R for rotation, click a keyframe here on our Y, and I'm just going to slide down a little bit. I'll just turn this in like that. So right away, when things pull out, it'll start to animate. But we don't want that rotation to start until the zoom actually takes place. So it's a little bit of a push and pull. So right now it's happening too soon. So I just need to go out just a little bit. Like that. That's okay, that's looking good. So now that's looking a little bit imperfect. Everything's kind of rotating in space. And then now with this alien leader, what we're gonna do is go to placeholder 5, and then we're gonna do the same thing. Go down, and we know that this really comes in like right here. So I want to finish it like probably like right around here. So I'll just set a keyframe there. I'll go back. Oops, I need to be able to see what I'm doing, right? Go here. I love the way this looks. Things are coming together so well. Now it's time to really package this thing up. So the first thing we're gonna do is add an adjustment layer. We're gonna call this posterize time. This is gonna allow us to alter the frame rate of things because we're editing in a 24 frame per second timeline. This is gonna allow things to look a little bit choppier, a little bit more stop motion-y, and that is the look that we were going for. And right away, just that one effect makes such a huge difference. But as I mentioned before, like we don't want things to look perfect. So to combat that a little bit, what we're gonna do is add grain. So I'm gonna go to layer, new, solid. We're gonna label this grain, and we're going to use this hex code 808080. I'm going to add grain right here. I'm gonna go to final output, use one of these Kodak presets. I'm gonna change the intensity to 1.2, the size to 1.3. And then I'm gonna change the animation to something like 0.1. We'll drop it down here. And then we're gonna change the blend mode to something like overlay. And it's gonna be a little strong at first. So all I'm gonna do is drop the opacity of this grain to something like 30. That's why it's a little bit more subtle. We have this big transition going from the first image to the last image. We wanna add blur because it'll just help things blend in just a little bit better. So I'm gonna highlight everything, add motion blur. I'm gonna go to our working comp. I'm gonna highlight everything here and I'm gonna add motion blur. So the last thing I wanna do to really tie this up is see these borders here on all of our photos. They look just a little too perfect to me. We changed the rotation, the color, lightness of different images and whatnot, but we didn't really do anything to these edges. So it's a really simple fix. What we're gonna do is add a Roughen Edges effect. So I'll go to, let's just say placeholder 1 real quick. And I'm going to add the effect. And then I need to make some modifications to really roughen this up. So I'm gonna change the border to something like 30. I'll change the sharpness to 2. I'm gonna change the scale to something like 70. And then I'm gonna change the complexity to 10. And right away, you have these rougher edges before and after. So it makes things look just a little bit more imperfect. And all I'm gonna do is copy this effect. I'll pull everything else back up and I will paste it in there. So now we have everything looking a little bit more rough, and that is what we're going for here. Nice. And this is how you make a fun timeline animation using Adobe After Effects. I'll make sure to leave the project files in the description below, along with the transition pack if you're interested. Thanks for watching and stay creative.